He stopped her just because of her skin color. He humiliated her. He hit her. He thought he was in control, but he had just sealed his own downfall. Who was that woman, really? And why? Just a few hours later, would the same officer end up on his knees, begging for forgiveness? This story will shake you from the very first second. Karina felt the adrenaline rush down her spine as she heard the screech of tires behind her. She quickly glanced at the rearview mirror, and her heart skipped a beat. Blue and red lights were spinning violently in the darkness, approaching at full speed. What did I do now? She thought in frustration, as she slowly reduced her speed and pulled over to the side of the deserted street. She took a deep breath, trying to calm herself, but it was useless. An inexplicable anxiety was invading every corner of her body. As soon as she stopped the vehicle, a burly police officer got out of the patrol car, slamming the door violently and walking firmly toward her. The officer's cold, disdainful gaze sent a chill down Karina's spine. She knew very well what that look meant. She tried to stay calm, though her hands trembled slightly on the steering wheel. With a sharp knock on the window, the man demanded in a harsh voice, "Get out of the vehicle immediately, right now." Now, Karina swallowed hard. Something inside her told her this wouldn't end well. Karina slowly stepped out of the vehicle, hands raised, trying to control her rapid breathing. The officer's piercing gaze, full of anger and contempt, made her feel vulnerable. Without saying a word, he grabbed her arm roughly and shoved her against the vehicle, forcing her to press her face against the cold hood of the car. "What do you think you're doing driving through this area, huh?" The officer growled in a mocking tone. "You're probably here causing trouble or visiting some accomplice. People like you're always up to something." Karina, helpless and humiliated, tried to respond calmly. "Officer, this is a mistake. I'm just heading home." The officer cut her off with another shove, this time more violent. His face reflected utter disdain as he held her tighter and searched her pockets with aggressive movements. "Shut up. I asked the questions here, got it? People like you shouldn't even dare to come through these decent neighborhoods. You're a plague. You hear me? A plague that contaminates everything it touches." Karina closed her eyes, feeling how anger and frustration mixed with a deep sense of sadness. Her muscles tensed even more as she felt the officer begin to press harder, whispering in her ear with evident hatred. "Tonight you're going to learn your place, you understand? You're going to learn the hard way." Karina clenched her teeth tightly, trying to hold back tears of rage and humiliation. She could feel every word from the officer stabbing at her dignity, increasing her helplessness in the face of such injustice. The officer, his face close to her ear, kept spitting words full of hatred. "You're all the same. Blacks like you think you can go wherever you want, contaminating everything, ruining our neighborhoods. Who gave you permission to come in here? N asterisk 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 R." She tried to move, but the pressure of the officer's arm against her back immobilized her even more. Frustration mixed with growing despair inside her. Her tears began to fall silently as the hurtful words kept piercing her thoughts. "You know what's wrong with you people?" The officer continued with contempt. "You think you can live and act like decent people, but you always end up showing what you really are. Trash that dirties our streets. They should lock you all up and throw away the key." Karina felt every muscle in her body burn with indignation. She wanted to scream, to defend herself, to demand respect, but the powerlessness was overwhelming. She knew that at that moment, nothing she said would change the officer's hate-filled mind. She squeezed her eyes shut as the officer, relishing his momentary power, whispered with a mocking smile, "I'm in charge here, in asterisk 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 R." Karina breathed heavily, feeling the mix of helplessness and fury grow dangerously inside her. The officer, pleased with the humiliation he was inflicting, grabbed her by the shoulders and spun her around roughly to face him. With a cruel smile, he stared into Karina's eyes, still wet with tears. "What's wrong? Gonna cry now?" He mocked maliciously. "That's what you people do, always playing the victim, pretending to be innocent. You think those fake tears move me? I know exactly what a black woman like you is. Trouble." Karina lifted her gaze, gathering the strength to face the officer. Her voice trembled slightly but it was firm. "You have no right to treat me like this. This is abuse." The officer let out a mocking laugh, raising a threatening hand. "Abuse? You people don't deserve respect, much less rights. Learn your place. Insolent in **********. Without giving her a chance to react, the officer raised his hand and slapped her, the sound echoing in the silence of the night. Karina felt her cheek burn as the indignation and pain fused into a deep, almost uncontrollable rage. "This won't end like this," she shouted with a trembling voice. The officer stepped even closer, his eyes full of hate, whispering with absolute disdain. "No matter how much you scream, no one will believe a black woman like you. Around here, I always win." The officer slowly stepped back, admiring his humiliating work with satisfaction. He looked at Karina with disdain as she stood motionless and stunned, her hand still on the cheek reddened by the slap. With an arrogant smile, he adjusted his belt and walked toward his patrol car. "Consider this a warning. In ************, he said sarcastically as he opened the vehicle door. "Next time, I won't be so nice." He started the engine and sped off, leaving behind a trail of dust and smoke, proud and convinced that no one would ever question his authority. Karina was left alone in the middle of the dark street, the echo of the insult still ringing in her ears and the bitter feeling of helplessness consuming every fiber of her being. But something inside her was beginning to awaken, a deep determination not to let that humiliation go unpunished. The next morning, Karina took a deep breath as she adjusted her spotless uniform in front of the mirror. Her face still bore the marks of the previous night's assault. A slight swelling and a purplish shadow under her eye were clearly visible. But today, she wouldn't let that stop her. Her transfer had been both a challenge and an opportunity, one she faced with determination and pride. Upon arriving at the Central Police Station, she stepped out of the vehicle with a steady stride, carefully concealing the emotions that still burned within her. As she entered the building, the officers immediately stood at attention as she passed, greeting her with respect. "Good morning, Commander," one of her subordinates said with a kind and solemn gesture. Karina gave a slight nod and made her way to her office. She had barely taken a seat when someone knocked firmly at the door. "Commander, sorry to interrupt. The staff is ready for the official introduction. Everyone's eager to meet you." She stood up with resolve, took a deep breath, and stepped out toward the main hall. As she walked determinedly down the corridor, she saw the lineup of officers waiting for her. Suddenly, among the rows, she spotted a familiar face that made her stop abruptly. There, with a stunned and disbelieving expression, stood the officer who had humiliated her the night before. Now, seeing her in the commander's uniform and walking with the absolute authority she radiated, the officer's pride and arrogance began to crumble, replaced by a visible expression of terror and shame. Karina stopped right in front of the officer, holding his gaze with a look that seemed to pierce through his soul. The silence in the room grew heavy, uncomfortable, thick with tension. Everyone present noticed the change in the officer's face, now pale, his hands trembling. "Is there a problem, officer?" Karina asked in a firm, authoritative voice, breaking the moment's tension. The officer tried to speak, but his words came out broken, barely audible. Commander, I didn't know." Karina stepped forward, her expression stern and unyielding. "Didn't know what exactly, officer? That the black woman you humiliated, insulted, and assaulted last night could be your new superior?" A wave of disbelief rippled through the room. The other officers' eyes turned toward him like blades, silently judging. The officer, paralyzed by shame and fear, felt his knees give way. Unable to stay on his feet, he slowly dropped to the ground, kneeling before Karina. "Please, Commander, forgive me," he stammered, voice breaking, tears beginning to stream down his cheeks. "I beg you, I didn't know who you were. I never meant." Karina stood tall, cold, staring at him in silence. The officer remained there, humiliated and repentant, under the stunned gaze of his fellow officers, fully aware that his arrogance and racism had led him to his worst nightmare. Karina let a few seconds pass in complete silence, allowing everyone in the room to fully absorb the scene. Then, calmly but with absolute firmness, she spoke. "Stand up, officer. No one here should be kneeling before anyone. You're not truly sorry for the harm you caused. You only regret the consequences of your actions. What you did last night wasn't just an insult to me, but to every person who wears this uniform with dignity and respect." The officer slowly got to his feet, head lowered, unable to meet the stern gazes surrounding him. Karina turned to the rest of her subordinates, raising her voice with authority. "Listen carefully. Racism, discrimination, and abuse have no place in this institution. Our duty is to protect all citizens, regardless of skin color, origin, or status. If anyone thinks otherwise, they're in the wrong place and will face the consequences." Everyone remained silent, nodding with respect and admiration toward their new commander. Karina turned back to the officer and with a cold, decisive voice declared, "Officer, you are hereby suspended effective immediately. A formal investigation into your conduct will begin, and believe me, I will personally ensure this does not go unpunished. Hand over your badge and weapon right now." The officer, defeated and humiliated, shakily handed over his service items. Without dignity and in complete silence, he left the room, feeling every gaze pierce him with disapproval and contempt. Karina took a deep breath, aware that she had taken a huge step in the fight against a system plagued by injustice. Her heart pounded. The humiliation still stung, but now she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. She had turned her frustration into action and was ready to lead by example. As the room broke into heartfelt applause for their new commander, Karina understood that this day, though painful, would mark the beginning of a path toward a more just and dignified future for all.